Word started spreading fast. Something big had just happened, and the entire hip-hop world was caught off guard. Reports began circulating that nearly a dozen rappers were arrested shortly after explosive footage from 50 Cent's latest documentary leaked online and went viral. The clips didn't just spark curiosity, they sent shockwaves through the industry. According to insiders, what was shown wasn't just controversial, it was potentially career-ending. And true to form, 50 Cent didn't stay quiet. Instead, he leaned into the moment, openly mocking those involved and even sharing snippets tied to their arrests, fueling an already out-of-control narrative. Now the conversation has split into chaos, some calling it exposure, others calling it exploitation. But either way, nobody can look away. To really understand how everything escalated this far, you have to go back to December 2025. That's when a 4-part documentary series titled Sean Combs, The Reckoning dropped on Netflix. This wasn't just another music documentary. It was positioned as a deep, investigative look into one of the most powerful and controversial figures in hip-hop history. 50 Cent, whose real name is Curtis James Jackson III, teamed up with director Alexandria Stapleton to bring the project to life. From the beginning, it was clear this wasn't going to be a safe or surface-level production. It aimed to dig into decades of influence, power, and allegations surrounding Sean Diddy Combs and the empire he built. The series wasn't rushed or thrown together. It had been in development since late 2023, when 50 Cent first revealed he was working on it. By the time it finally released, it had the full backing of Netflix, giving it a level of scale and reach that instantly made it a major cultural moment. Netflix itself described the series as jaw-dropping and revelatory, promising to unpack serious allegations tied to Diddy's life and career. And it delivered on that promise in ways few expected. The early episodes revisited some of the darkest and most debated moments in hip-hop history. It re-examined the East Coast versus West Coast rivalry of the 1990s, including the still unsolved murders of Tupac Shakur and the notorious B.I.G. It explored Diddy's intense battles with rival labels like Death Row Records and his connections to some of the biggest names in the industry. It even touched on his high-profile relationships, including his past with singer Cassie Ventura. But while all of that was compelling, it wasn't what truly shook viewers. What changed everything was the footage no one expected to see. The documentary included never-before-seen video recorded in the 6 days leading up to Diddy's arrest, along with handwritten journal entries from Bad Boy co-founder Kirk Burroughs. These entries reportedly documented years of behind-the-scenes dealings, offering a rare and deeply personal look into how Diddy managed both his business empire and his private life. But it was the origin of the footage that made things even more complicated. According to reports, the footage came from a videographer Diddy had personally hired to document his life for what was supposed to be a private project. After his arrest, that material somehow ended up in the hands of a third-party freelancer, who allegedly leaked it. The situation quickly turned into a controversy of its own. The lead documentarian associated with the original project claimed the leak had nothing to do with money, calling it a betrayal instead. He suggested that someone acted unethically by passing the footage along to 50 Cent, raising serious questions about how it was obtained. When asked directly about the source of the footage, 50 Cent didn't offer much clarity. In interviews leading up to the release, both he and the director remained tight-lipped. When pressed, he reportedly pushed back, questioning why anyone would expect them to reveal their sources. Stapleton, on the other hand, maintained that everything used in the documentary was obtained legally and that they had the necessary rights to include it. Still, that didn't stop speculation from spreading. And then there was the footage itself. One of the most talked-about clips showed Diddy in a visibly agitated state, speaking to his legal team. In the scene, he appeared frustrated and aggressive, discussing the mounting allegations against him and urging his lawyers to find someone willing to fight back in what he described as the dirtiest parts of the business. It painted a version of him that many viewers had never seen before, raw, tense, and under pressure. Another moment that quickly went viral showed Diddy interacting with fans in Harlem. At first, the interaction seemed normal. He greeted supporters, took photos, and smiled for the cameras. But as soon as he got back into his car, his demeanor shifted. He reportedly expressed discomfort, saying he felt dirty and needed to wash. That brief moment sparked intense debate online, with many questioning what it revealed about his mindset and character. 50 Cent didn't hesitate to highlight these scenes. In interviews, he made it clear that he believed the footage spoke for itself. He framed his involvement in the documentary as something bigger than entertainment. According to him, staying silent would have sent the wrong message, that the culture was willing to ignore certain behaviors. He positioned the project as a responsibility, saying he felt obligated to speak up for people who couldn't. The response was immediate and massive. Within days of its release, The Reckoning reportedly pulled in over 50 million views, making it one of the most talked-about releases on the platform. Even 50 Cent admitted he was surprised by the scale of its success. He expected it to do well, but not to the point where it rivaled some of Netflix's biggest franchises. That level of attention didn't just boost the documentary, it shifted how people saw him. He wasn't just trolling online anymore. He had become someone capable of shaping narratives on a global level. But not everyone saw it that way. Diddy's team responded quickly, and their reaction was anything but calm. They strongly criticized the documentary, calling it a shameful hit piece and accusing it of being both unfair and deeply personal. They argued that it used sensitive footage in a way that crossed ethical lines, framing it as an attack rather than an objective investigation. The language was strong and the message was clear. They were not backing down. And that's where things stand now. What started as a documentary has turned into something much bigger, a cultural flashpoint that's forcing the industry to confront uncomfortable questions about power, accountability, and who controls the narrative. With arrests now being linked, leaks continuing to surface, and both sides refusing to stay quiet, this situation is far from over. If anything, it's just getting started. Diddy's camp didn't stay quiet for long, and when they finally responded, they came out swinging. His spokesperson, Judah Angel Mir, released a strong public statement accusing Netflix of crossing a serious line. According to them, the platform knowingly relied on footage that was never meant to be seen by the public. They argued that for decades, Diddy had been carefully documenting his own life story, building a personal archive meant to be told on his own terms, not taken, repackaged, and broadcast without his approval. From their perspective, this wasn't just a legal issue, it was a violation of something deeply personal. But the statement didn't stop at Netflix. It took direct aim at 50 Cent himself. Diddy's team described him as a longtime adversary with a personal vendetta, accusing Netflix of handing over influence to someone who had spent years publicly criticizing and mocking Diddy. To them, that decision alone undermined any claim of fairness or objectivity. They framed the entire documentary not as journalism, but as something closer to a targeted attack, an unnecessary and deeply personal affront, especially considering Diddy's past respect for Netflix leadership and industry figures he believed would treat his story with balance. Behind the scenes, things were already escalating. Just before the documentary dropped, Diddy's legal team reportedly sent a cease and desist letter to Netflix, challenging the use of private, pre-indictment footage. They insisted the material was unauthorized and should never have made it into the final cut. Despite that warning, the platform moved forward with the release anyway. And instead of backing off, 50 Cent leaned into the moment, mocking the legal threat publicly and turning it into fuel for the narrative. Netflix, however, pushed back just as firmly. In their response, they rejected every major claim coming from Diddy's camp. They made it clear that the documentary had no connection to any prior discussions with him and insisted that all footage used in the project was obtained legally. They also addressed one of the biggest accusations head-on, stating that while 50 Cent was an executive producer, he did not have full creative control over the series. That detail mattered because it directly challenged the idea that the documentary was driven by personal bias. Netflix also emphasized that no participants were paid, suggesting that the stories and interviews featured weren't influenced by financial incentives. And then, just when things couldn't get any stranger, a bizarre twist added even more confusion to the situation. 50 Cent took to social media claiming he had received an unexpected gift from Diddy, posting a photo of a bouquet of flowers allegedly sent to him while he was performing at a club in Miami. The internet immediately ran with it. Was it a peace offering, a warning, or something else entirely? But Diddy's team quickly shut it down, denying any involvement and suggesting that if the flowers were real, they were likely sent as a prank by someone else. The moment only added another layer of mystery to an already chaotic situation. Meanwhile, the legal pressure surrounding Diddy continued to build, and the documentary only intensified public interest. The series included interviews tied to jurors and individuals connected to his federal case, which began back in September 2024. That case involved serious charges, including racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud or coercion, and transportation for prostitution. By October 2025, Diddy had already been sentenced to prison on related charges, marking a dramatic fall from the top of the industry. After spending over a year in a high-security detention facility in Brooklyn, he was eventually transferred to a lower-security federal institution in New Jersey. But even behind bars, the legal issues didn't slow down, they multiplied. New claims began surfacing in court, and each one added more weight to an already heavy situation. One particularly shocking report involved testimony from an escort service owner, who alleged that Diddy had made multiple unusual requests involving male escorts. Attorneys also hinted that additional state-level charges could still be on the table, meaning the legal battle might be far from over. As expected, 50 Cent didn't stay silent about any of it. He responded quickly and bluntly on social media, addressing the latest allegations with the same unfiltered tone he's known for. His posts only amplified the situation, pulling even more attention toward the unfolding controversy. But the drama didn't stop there. The documentary itself became the subject of legal action. A former sex worker featured in the series filed a lawsuit against both Netflix and 50 Cent, accusing them of misrepresenting her story. According to the claim, her account had been edited and distorted in a way that changed the narrative entirely, portraying certain individuals as victims while leaving out key parts of her testimony. If proven true, it raises serious questions about how the documentary was put together and whether certain details were intentionally shaped to fit a specific storyline. So now, even as the documentary continues to pull in massive viewership numbers, the legal consequences are stacking up from multiple directions. And through it all, 50 Cent doesn't appear to be slowing down. To really understand why he went this far, though, you have to look beyond the documentary and into the history between these two men, because this didn't start recently. This goes back decades. Diddy and 50 Cent have crossed paths in the music industry for over 25 years. At one point, they were part of the same circles, even collaborating on projects connected to the notorious B.I.G.'s legacy. There was a time when their relationship seemed neutral, maybe even professional, but that didn't last. Everything shifted in the mid-2000s. In 2006, 50 Cent released a diss track titled The Bomb, and what he said in that record changed everything. He made a bold and controversial allegation that Diddy knew the identity of the person responsible for the murder of the notorious B.I.G. It was one of the most sensitive and unresolved topics in hip-hop history, and bringing it up publicly crossed a line that couldn't be undone. No one had ever been charged in that case, and for 50 Cent to suggest inside knowledge instantly escalated tensions to another level. From that point on, their relationship was never the same. There were brief moments where things seemed calmer. They shared the same spaces, exchanged jokes in interviews, and even aligned briefly during industry feuds involving other artists. But the underlying tension never disappeared. It just went quiet before resurfacing again. By 2014, the shots were back. 50 Cent publicly criticized Diddy's music, dismissing one of his releases as trash and questioning his relevance. And over time, the jabs became more personal. 50 even recalled uncomfortable interactions from years earlier, describing moments that left him confused and irritated. One story involved an exchange at an industry event where he claimed Diddy made comments that didn't sit right with him, so much so that he had to remove himself from the situation to avoid escalating things further. That's the reality of this rivalry. It's layered, it's personal, and it's been building for years. So when you see 50 Cent going all in on a documentary like this, it's not happening in a vacuum. It's the result of a long history filled with tension, accusations, and unresolved conflict. And now, with legal battles, viral footage, and public opinion all colliding at once, that history is playing out on the biggest stage possible. Diddy, for his part, has spent years brushing off the tension in public, at least on the surface. When asked about 50 Cent during an appearance on The Breakfast Club, he downplayed the entire situation, insisting there was no real beef between them. Smiley. And through the interview, he framed it almost like a misunderstanding. In his words, 50 didn't hate him, he actually loved him. To Diddy, it wasn't conflict, it was noise. But outside that studio moment, the story kept moving in a very different direction. By 2023, everything started to feel more serious. Diddy's legal issues were becoming public, and the conversation around him began to shift. That's when 50 Cent stepped into a far more aggressive phase of his long-running commentary. He didn't just troll anymore. He started making direct, explosive claims online, including suggestions tying Diddy to some of the most infamous tragedies in hip-hop history. Allegations involving Tupac Shakur resurfaced in public discourse, even though Diddy has consistently denied any involvement in both Tupac and Biggie's deaths. From that point on, the dynamic changed completely. 50 Cent wasn't just a rapper commenting from the sidelines. He had become a full-scale media force. With a production company behind him, a major Netflix deal, and a high-profile documentary focused on his longtime rival, the trolling had evolved into something much bigger, a structured, ongoing narrative being broadcast to millions. And not everyone in hip-hop was comfortable with that shift. Some of 50's oldest rivals saw an opportunity to hit back. Ja Rule, in particular, reignited his long-standing feud with 50 Cent during the rollout of the Netflix documentary Sean Combs, The Reckoning. He publicly criticized 50 Cent's involvement as executive producer, accusing him of being no different from the people he was exposing. Online, Ja Rule escalated the situation even further, calling 50 a rat, and questioning his motives for being so deeply involved in exposing others' lives. By December 2025, the tension had boiled over again. Ja Rule didn't hold back, going as far as labeling 50 Cent a cancer to the culture in social media posts. He also brought up past controversies, including allegations from years earlier, using them to argue that 50 had no moral authority to judge anyone else. In his eyes, the documentary wasn't accountability, it was hypocrisy. But the roots of this feud go way deeper than the Netflix era. The Ja Rule 50 Cent rivalry is one of hip-hop's longest-running and most personal conflicts, stretching back more than 20 years. It's been shaped by street incidents, industry politics, diss tracks, and public humiliation on both sides. The origin story is often traced back to the late 1990s, when Ja Rule was reportedly robbed in Queens by someone connected to 50 Cent's circle. From there, both men have told completely different versions of what actually happened, and those conflicting stories only fueled the fire. Over time, things escalated from rumors to records, and from records to real-world violence. Meetings at studios turned tense, alliances shifted, and at one point, Ja Rule was even stabbed during a confrontation involving members of Murder, Inc. That moment alone locked in the hostility for years to come. So when Ja Rule came for 50 Cent over the Netflix documentary, it wasn't random. It was just the latest chapter in a feud that never really ended. And 50 Cent responded exactly how many expected him to. Instead of backing down, he leaned into the chaos. He shared clips, reposted old interviews, and even amplified stories from former associates who added more fuel to the fire. One clip he circulated involved a former bodyguard describing alleged private interactions involving Diddy and Ja Rule, turning speculation into viral content within hours. Meanwhile, the situation wasn't just about artists anymore. It was spilling into families. Diddy's sons, Justin Combs and Christian King Combs, also stepped into the public conversation. They announced a new documentary project of their own, set to explore how their family has been impacted by the legal battles surrounding their father. The announcement came with teaser footage showing them reacting to courtroom scenes and media coverage, signaling that the narrative around Diddy was no longer limited to the industry. It had become personal and generational. King Combs had already been active in the discourse, releasing music that called out critics and defended his father. At one point, both he and his brother were briefly detained during a search connected to their father's legal case, though neither was charged. Still, the images of that moment added another layer to an already intense public story. And through all of it, 50 Cent never slowed down. He continued posting edits, commentary, and satirical content, targeting both Diddy and the broader web of industry connections around him. At one point, he even turned the entire situation into a commercial concept, framing celebrity drama as entertainment itself. What used to be just social media trolling had transformed into full-scale media storytelling, blending satire, business, and controversy into one continuous narrative. By now, the impact of the reckoning had gone far beyond a documentary. It had triggered legal responses, industry backlash, family involvement, and decades-old rivalries all reigniting at once. The fallout wasn't contained. It was spreading in every direction. And at the center of it all, 50 Cent wasn't reacting anymore. He was steering the story forward. By early 2026, the situation took yet another turn, one that pushed the entire hip-hop conversation into even more unpredictable territory. On March 5th, 50 Cent posted something on Instagram that immediately sent the internet into overdrive. A screenshot began circulating online claiming he was developing a new documentary project centered around T.I. and Tiny Harris, tentatively titled Surviving T.I. and Tiny. The name alone was enough to trigger reactions, deliberately echoing the infamous Surviving R. Kelly series and instantly signaling controversy before anything was even confirmed. Then came 50 Cent's caption. He didn't deny it. He didn't clarify it. Instead, he leaned directly into the chaos. He wrote about how quiet he had been before his previous documentary, hinting that silence often comes before something bigger. Then he added a sharp, pointed line suggesting that people might want to prepare for questions about serious allegations and even talk to a crisis PR team. Whether it was confirmation, trolling, or something in between, the message was clear. The rumor had now become part of the conversation. But here's the twist. He later deleted the post. And that only made things louder. To understand why this hit so hard, you have to understand the history behind it. The tension between 50 Cent and T.I. isn't new. It goes back to the late 2000s, when 50 publicly called T.I. a snitch following legal issues involving weapons charges and plea deals. That moment planted a seed that never really disappeared. Fast forward to 2026, and the feud reignited in full force. T.I. had recently taken shots at 50 Cent during interviews and promo appearances, even questioning why 50 wouldn't step into a Versus-style battle. That challenge didn't land quietly. Instead, it triggered a wave of diss tracks and online exchanges, with both sides escalating the tension in public view. But then things moved beyond just the two artists. T.I.'s sons entered the conflict, releasing their own music aimed at 50 Cent. What started as industry rivalry was now spilling into family involvement, and the tone of the feud shifted sharply. It wasn't just competitive anymore. It was personal, multi-layered, and increasingly volatile. The most controversial moment came when T.I.'s son, King Harris, went live and directed remarks toward 50 Cent's late mother, Sabrina Jackson. That instantly crossed a line in the eyes of many fans. The situation escalated further when King wore a t-shirt featuring her image, a move that even T.I. later acknowledged had gone too far. Publicly, T.I. tried to distance himself from the fallout. In interviews, he insisted that his family members were acting on their own, not under his direction. He expressed pride in their unity, but also admitted he had advised them to step back after things became too heated. Still, the damage was already done. And 50 Cent didn't respond the way many expected. There were no immediate diss tracks, no direct musical retaliation. Instead, he shifted strategy. Because by now, 50 Cent wasn't just operating as a rapper in a feud. He was operating as a media force with a proven blueprint. He had already demonstrated what happens when he turns real-life conflict into long-form storytelling through Sean Combs' The Reckoning. That Netflix documentary didn't just trend. It reportedly pulled tens of millions of views within days and reshaped how audiences engaged with celebrity controversy. That success changed everything. It proved he wasn't just participating in hip-hop beef. He was packaging it, producing it, and broadcasting it at a global scale. So when the idea of surviving T.I. and Tiny surfaced, even as a rumor, it didn't feel like random trolling. It felt like a strategy, a warning, a reminder of what he had already done once before. At the center of all of this are long-standing allegations surrounding T.I. and Tiny Harris, involving claims made by multiple individuals over several years. Those allegations have circulated widely online since 2021, when public accusations first surfaced, leading to civil claims and investigations. However, despite the volume of claims and public discussion, no criminal convictions have resulted, and the couple has consistently denied wrongdoing, maintaining that all interactions described were consensual. That gap between legal outcomes and public perception is exactly where this entire narrative lies, and it's also where 50 Cent has proven he knows how to operate best. Because whether or not a documentary actually exists is almost irrelevant at this point. As of now, there is no confirmed production schedule, no official network announcement, and no verified footage tied to surviving T.I. and Tiny. But the idea alone has already done what it was designed to do: dominate headlines, spark panic, and shift the conversation. And that's the modern playbook 50 Cent has refined. With The Reckoning, he didn't just participate in a documentary. He helped create a blueprint for how celebrity conflict can be turned into global content. That project didn't just perform well. It reportedly pulled massive streaming numbers in its opening days and positioned him as both storyteller and strategist. Now, that same energy is being projected onto his next target. Even the music side has become part of the strategy. A track tied to the Power franchise reportedly included indirect references aimed at T.I. and his family, further blurring the line between entertainment and ongoing dispute. In this world, even a song isn't just a song, it's another chapter in the narrative. And that's what makes this moment different. Because whether the documentary ever happens or not, the impact is already real. The conversation has already shifted. The pressure has already been applied, and the industry is once again watching closely, waiting to see what comes next. At this point, one thing is clear. This isn't just about music anymore. It's about influence, storytelling, and control of the narrative itself. And 50 Cent, whether people like it or not, has turned that into his most powerful weapon. The only question left is simple, but uncomfortable. Who's next?